All right. Well, good morning, LifePoint Church. I'm so glad to see you guys today. My name is Lance. I'm a friend of LifePoint's. I've been around quite a few times. If you're new to LifePoint or if you're joining us online for the first time, maybe the first time in a long time, welcome. I'm not quite as good as Rusty, but good news is he'll be back next week. And so I can't wait to see that as we continue in this series. I wish someone would have told me. And some of you are thinking, I wish someone would have told me Rusty's not here this weekend. Or I wish somebody would have told me online was even an option. If you didn't know, well, man, you should have known a long time ago. I haven't spoken live in person in what feels like months. I've been spending way too much time at my church speaking to a camera at the church I pastor, and we are still actually shut down right now, or closed, or on pause, or however you want to phrase it right now. So I have a lot of pent-up communication in me, but these next 3 hours are going to be awesome. I'll tell you what, I have some great material for you. I am very excited about it. We're just going to welcome in the next service. We're going to seat them all around you, and I'm going to restart. And so you guys are going to kind of get the warm-up and the second round, which is super duper exciting. No, I'm just kidding. But I am really excited to be back in person, to see most of your faces in quite a few colorful masks, which is exciting. If you're online, hopefully that 3-hour comment didn't get you to click away right away. You said, I'm giving up, and I'm so glad I joined online today. But man, as I walk into y'all's new building, it looks absolutely phenomenal. And I know we're just getting a teaser. I actually got to go behind the scenes and sneak behind the barricades, don't tell Rusty, and check out the new auditorium you guys are building, and it's absolutely incredible. So before we jump in, I just wanted to say, way to go, LifePoint. I mean, it's so cool to see some churches build new buildings or new places to simply, hopefully, start something new. What's great is you're building it to facilitate what's already happening. It's people seeing their lives changed, coming to know Jesus in a new way, having their whole families transformed, having their relationships, their marriages, their parenting, everything changed. And it's cool to see how that's facilitated. So for those of you that have prayed, that have invested, that have given resources, time, effort, energy, way to go. It's cool to see. I can't wait to be speaking over in that main auditorium here soon, and joined by all of you who are online as well. It has been a weird season for all of us. Let's just be honest. It's been a weird, strange season. I know for many of us, it's looked different. For some, your life has ramped up a little bit. For some, it has really slowed down. But the whole idea of quarantine and isolation has been different for each of us. I talk to a lot of people. In my profession, I actually pastor a church down in the neighborhood of Ballard in Seattle, which now we're still part of everything. We're not independent yet. It's fine. But we're still moving through a lot of things, and we have a pretty young church. And what's interesting is I look through isolation is a different lens for different people. Now, I talk to some people who are maybe newly married, maybe you're just a young professional, and I'm asking them what quarantine has been like, and their response has been, I'm bored. I'm bored a lot of times. I'm trying to find new shows. I'm trying to find awesome. And then I talk to a parent and I ask, how's your quarantine been? They'd be like, I would pay money to be bored. I would give whatever it took to be bored. I would love to run out of shows on Netflix to watch. I would love to find something bored. But for them, maybe their workload is ramped up. For some of you got the bad news this week that there's going to be remote learning. Maybe you have kids at home. It's difficult. There's a lot of things we're all trying to work through. And that's why as we go through a series like this, we see something in Proverbs that I think speaks a lot to what a lot of us are feeling, because isolation without purpose can create chaos. We all know that. Isolation without purpose can create chaos. That's why whether you have kids and you don't have a goal or a plan for the day, your life turns into chaos, or maybe you have nothing going on in your life, you're bored, your life kind of turns into chaos too, because isolation without purpose creates chaos. We see this in Proverbs. If you have notes, you can go ahead and take those out and fill them in. Online, you can go ahead and take notes as well. In Proverbs 18:1, it says this: one who has isolated himself seeks his own desires. Get this part. He rejects all sound judgment. Man, doesn't that feel like the world today? Like, because of isolation, maybe we've rejected some sound judgment. People who you would normally meet with just the utmost character have now maybe crept away and gotten to a place where it's like, man, this doesn't feel like you. As you look online, maybe you see different comments on social media, people talking to other human beings in a way that you're like, hold on, have you lost all sound judgment? You have been isolated too long. Next thing you know, they're going to introduce you to their volleyball friend named Wilson, and you're like, listen, you've been alone for too long. That's a Castaway joke. Nobody watches Castaway? That's cool. That's cool. We're just going to keep moving on. We're going to truck on ahead. But here's what I know. Here's what I know. Get this. As much as isolation can be one of the biggest burdens of our life, it can be a thing that challenges us, that makes life difficult. As much as it can be a burden, at the same time, for some strange reason, Jesus continued actually to seek isolation in the middle of his ministry. It's not because he was bored. He had plenty of things going on, but he sought out isolation. He sought out moments to be independent. So I believe, get this, that if we're really intentional, if we're really purposeful with our time, isolation, we get to choose whether it's a blessing or a burden. I'll give you one example. Jesus, this is a great story. Jesus gets done healing this man of leprosy. And when you do that, believe it or not, a crowd comes. It begins to gather, not just because he was an incredible teacher or miracle worker. He turned water into wine. That's a party trick. I mean, he did some incredible things. He walked on water. People were eager to see what he would do next. And he started healing people. And a crowd gathered. It was unbelievable. And just at the peak of when the crowd gathered, of when you were thinking, hey, the next part of the story is he says, hey, come on, let's all go to heaven. Let's get everybody saved. He slips away from the crowd and seeks an opportunity of isolation. Again, it wasn't because he was bored, but because he saw purpose in it. This is what Luke wrote down as he was kind of, maybe this was the party line of the disciples as people asked, hey, why is Jesus keep slipping away? This is what Luke wrote down in Luke 5:16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and he prayed. Again, it's not because he was bored, it's because he saw it with purpose. So the big idea today, if you log off, or hopefully this baits you to continue to watch a little bit longer, maybe you're in the room, if you got a note sheet when you came in, this is going to be the main idea for today is simply this, that isolation can be a burden or a blessing. That isolation can be a burden or a blessing. But the good news is you get to choose. It all comes down to purpose. And I think there's three realms of our life, three different areas or pots that if we really focus in on, you've probably felt some of this before as we go through this, we're gonna be like, that explains it. I have been through that. But there's three realms that I think isolation impacts in our life. And if we get these three realms right, this season that none of us saw coming, the season that we didn't expect, the season that we wish we would have known, the season that we wish could look different, we could get to the other side of it, look back, and it could be a story that we tell of how our life changed for the good. You get to decide. At the end of this whole thing, do you want to look back and be like, man, I just survived it, I made it through, man, we got through it, and I hope that never happens again? Or that changed my life for the better. We get to decide. So the first realm, if you're taking notes, is this. Come on, online, in person, whatever it is. The first realm, this one's the most obvious. We're going to put the cookies in the bottom shelf for the first one here. Okay, this is the first one. Three realms is socially. Socially. We know it has a social impact, the social impact. And for each one of these, there will be a burden and a blessing. The first one, the social burden is loneliness. We were not wired to be alone. We were not wired to be socially isolated. God created from the very beginning two people, so we could be in communion together. And I get it. Before you come at me and say, I can't be around people right now, I totally understand what that may look like. Listen, if you're watching online and you don't feel comfortable, there's no shame on you. If you're saying, hey, there's something that precludes me from coming to church today, I'm so glad we have technology and we have the opportunity to jump online together. But we know this, that we're not wired to socially be distant from one another. There's a laboratory in South Minneapolis called Orfield Laboratories, and they've created the quietest place on earth. Without sound paneling, whatever science they would use, they've created a place where you go inside of it, they close in the door, and it is perfectly quiet. Now, some people, and listen, if you're a parent in here, you're like, glory to God, that sounds like heaven. That is a manifestation of what heaven's gonna sound like. You're gonna try and tell me that there's no Paw Patrol in this place. No, there's no Paw Patrol in this place. There is no Frozen 2. There is none of that kind of stuff. Disney Plus does not exist in this space. And the greatest news, they've created this perfect silence. You wanna know what's wild about it? The longest someone's ever lasted without literally beginning to hallucinate and lose their mind is 45 minutes in perfect silence. 45 minutes, that's it. Your body is not wired. You begin to hear your heart beat in your chest. People start to say that they can feel their blood pumping through their body, and they begin to have this breakdown because we're not built for silence. Anyone else in here sleep with white noise at night? Sleep with white noise? You're just white. Anyone else in here, when you get home, you turn on a radio, you turn on, who has a radio anymore? You like play music, you tell Siri to play music, you tell Alexa to play music. Anybody? I'm not the only one? Okay, great. Because we're just built to have people around us, and when we begin to isolate ourselves, we get to a place where quiet just drives us absolutely insane. I took a drink of water and some of you just got antsy. It gets that awkward. Some of you are like, drink faster. Come on, drink faster than you're drinking. That was horrific. That hurt me to do a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. But we're created for community, and the biggest burden that we can feel is loneliness. If you felt it in this season, you're not alone. You're not strange. You're not weird. It impacts all of us. But here's the good news. Here's the blessing that can come with social isolation is preparation. It comes in the form of preparation. It allows us to prepare for what's next. Here's an example we see Jesus illustrate for us in Mark chapter 1, verse 35. Here's what it says. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark. Oh man, believe it or not, places are pretty empty when it's still dark outside. Jesus got up, left the house, went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. When they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to a nearby village so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." Listen, early in the morning, Jesus got up, disciplined himself. Why? Because he was bored? No. Because he's a morning person? Maybe. I don't know. But what I do know is he knew there were social demands for the rest of his day. He knew that because of his ministry, because of what he was doing, there was going to be a demand on his social effort and energy. This is not an introvert-extrovert thing. This is just reality. There was going to be a demand. So when he took the time to prepare for what is ahead, it set him on the right direction for the rest of his day. I think we can learn something from that. Socially, listen, if you're in a place where you are feeling exhausted socially, what if you just prepared yourself in the beginning of the day? What if you took an opportunity? It doesn't have to be before dark, but what about just right before everyone wakes up? You set your alarm 5 minutes earlier if you want to, and you just take a moment. Maybe for some of you, it's your first opportunity to read the Bible. And that might be new for some of you, I totally understand, but maybe you take that opportunity to go through Proverbs like this series is based on. It's a great place to start. Maybe for some of you, this is your first opportunity to try and pray, and just simply pray, God, would you help me make it through the day? Would you help me with the social demands? Would you help me whether it's too demanding or whether I feel lonely? God, would you prepare me for whatever is ahead today, just in the way that Jesus decided to prepare himself? Have you ever walked into a conversation unprepared? Anybody? Come on. You walked into a conversation unprepared? You remember that one time you asked her out? Come on, you were unprepared. Like it was, do you remember that moment? I love to play golf. That's my thing. I love to play golf. And here's what I know. After being married as long as we have, with my 2 little girls at home, I have a 3-month-old and I have a 2-year-old. So my life is a little bit busy, chaos at home, it just ensues. And here's what I know to be true. If I have not prepared for the conversation to ask my wife to play golf, it will fail. It will fail every time. Come on. You know what I'm talking about. Come on. Everybody in here, you know what I'm talking about. Ladies, if you don't prepare how you're going to navigate the finances to get those shoes, like I understand. Like, no, baby, this is a great investment for our future and for our children if I buy this. Like, I understand there's certain ways I have to finesse a conversation, and a lot of times it takes preparation. Listen, there are certain things that you are not prepared for in the day. That's why you feel like your fuse is about this long sometimes in conversations, while you feel like you start your day on the wrong foot, while you are just grumpy and you need to fix your face from the moment you wake up. It's because you haven't taken the time to prepare. What if you just simply ask, God, today when things do not go my way, and I know it's going to happen, would you prepare my heart to respond in a way that you would want me to? Dangerous prayer, but I challenge you to do it. Second one is this: not only does it impact us socially, but it also impacts us mentally. And the thing that we face the most, come on, you know this is true, the thing that we face the most is the burden of worry. The burden of worry. And here's how I would define worry. Worry naturally fills in the gaps in our mind that we don't understand. Worry will naturally fill in the gaps in our mind with things we don't understand. And this is, again, it's not really optimist, pessimist lifestyle. I am an eternal optimist. I love it. Glass is always half full. It looks even 3/4 full. It might even overflow. I love being an optimist, and that's not what this is about. But I know in my mind, I'm susceptible to it, and I know you are too. When we get to a place where we don't really understand, worry will naturally creep in. Worst case scenarios will naturally creep in. That's why in the middle of the night when it's dark out, you can't really see in your house, you never assume something great is happening. Do you? You never, like your mind never goes to great places at night, does it? Like you naturally worry. No one has stayed up all night long like, oh, I'm just so grateful. Like everything, my life is so great right now. I'm so thankful for my home. I just couldn't sleep last night. I was just so thankful. No, I talk to people all the time. It's because I worry. It's because I'm stressed, because I'm sweaty, because I'm like, is this thing ever going to end? Are my kids ever going to go back to school? Are we ever going to have normal again? Like we begin to worry, and I don't want to minimize some of your worries. I get it. Some of you are worried about a diagnosis that you recently got. My job is not to minimize that. Worry is natural, but listen to me. When we have gaps in our life, when we have gaps in our understanding, it's natural for us to fill it in with worry. Again, we see this in Proverbs. This is our core verse today, Proverbs 18:1. One who has isolated himself seeks his own desires and rejects all sound judgment. Judgment is cognitive. Judgment comes from our mind. And so for each of us, maybe we can begin to ask the question, what has this done to me mentally that I didn't even know was happening? Do I find myself worrying more than I ever should? Maybe more than I ever usually did. Do I find myself worrying? And let's see what Jesus did as an opportunity as well. Not only is it a burden of worry, but it could be a blessing of growth. It provides the opportunity, rather, for the blessing of growth. And this could look like a number of different things, but clearing mental space always provides the foundation for healthy growth. You know this to be true. Clearing mental space provides the foundation for healthy growth. Anytime my wife and I would end up at like Home Goods or something, I don't know, have you guys ever been to Home Goods before? No. Yeah, some of you men smile. I see your smile through your mask. You're lucky you have a mask on right now. You're making an ugly face. But here's the reality. We've been to Home Goods before, and my wife knows this simple thing to be true. If she wants to buy something new, we got to get rid of something old. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? I'm like, baby, where are we even going to put that? We already have a couch. We have 2 couches. We don't need another couch. We have plenty of seating options. But what if that other room, we needed a couch? That other room doesn't need a couch. What if we get rid of one thing before we can replace it with another? Listen, isolation has provided you the opportunity to slow down, really look at this thing, negotiate. Does this bring value to my life? What was that one gal, that Netflix show that came out not too long ago? She's like, does this bring me joy? That gal, yep. Does this bring me joy? Maybe you get the opportunity to do that right now, to clear some mental space and begin to figure out where you can grow. I've seen a number of different people that I've talked to. They'd be like, man, during quarantine, here's the stack of 87 books that I've read. Those are like really small books, but like 87 books that I've read. I have really developed this new skill. I've lost 77 pounds, and it's been absolutely incredible. I now run 2% body fat like Doug. And it's just like, I know you get to that place and you see that, you're like, oh, that's awesome. Well, I have watched so many series on Netflix, so it's been really a blessing for both of us. Like, it's been absolutely incredible. But we get the opportunity, listen, at the end of this, you get to walk away and decide where you wanted to grow. Did you want to grow in your capacity to worry? Let me tell you what, you're plenty good at it already. You don't need to spend more time on it. But what if you took this opportunity to grow in something? You know what it is. I don't even have to name them. I could make a list of 40 things, but there's that thing in the back of your head that God has been challenging you to grow in, and you've been thinking, man, I just don't want to do it. What if this is the time? What if this is the time to do it? Set aside some worry, create some room, and begin to grow. Sound good? Your mask is really muffling your enthusiasm right now, but I'm going to believe it. Everyone online, they're freaking out. Like, this is just absolutely incredible. They're going nuts right now. Here's what it says in Matthew about this whole idea of growth. When Jesus heard that, get this, John the Baptist had been beheaded. If you don't know what I'm talking about in the Bible, this is where the Bible gets exciting. You're like, wait, people get beheaded in the Bible? It's real. You got to read yours. But one of Jesus' best friends, John the Baptist, he'd known for the longest time, when he heard that he had been killed, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. I'm going to get real for a second. For some of you, there is something that you've needed to process through, that you've been way too busy, You've said you've had way too much time, you've had way too many expectations, you've just always put off. It's never the right time. But this is going to be a time in your life where you choose to process. There's been something that's been holding down your mind that you need to begin to work through. That maybe you need to grieve something just as Jesus did, but he took the time and he did it. Maybe you need to work something that you've been through so you no longer have to work through it every single day, so it doesn't any longer impact the relationships that you have today, that you can begin to get rid of guilt and shame that you wake up with every day. Listen, I don't need to name it. It's the thing that keeps you up at night, but you just know that your thing, maybe this is the year that you work through your thing, that you take the opportunity to grow. Then maybe you're vulnerable enough that you come and pray with somebody after service. And you say, this is my opportunity that I need to take some time to grow, that this is going to begin to change my life. Maybe for some of you, it's a past hurt that you need to get through. Maybe, listen, this is your opportunity where you need to go and you need to find some digital online counselor, maybe someone you can see face to face. You need to get to therapy. There's nothing shameful about it. There's nothing bad about it. This is a gift that God provides where people have the skills and equipment to help us work things that overburden our heart. Is there anything that you think God would prioritize more than working through the things that are holding down our heart? And listen, maybe you're going to go meet with somebody, but there's some work that you need to do in isolation, that you need to do in your own stuff to get through. And now that it's sufficiently quiet and you guys feel really uncomfortable, I'm going to move on to point 3. Here we go. Point 3, last one, is simply this. Not only is isolation something we need to impact socially, mentally, but finally, emotionally. Emotionally. If you thought it couldn't get any deeper, here we go. Come on, put on your hard hats. Let's do it. Emotionally. And the burden that we see, that I've felt, if I'm being honest, and I bet you felt too, is hopelessness. It's hopelessness. I was listening to an incredible communicator. His name is Dr. Henry Cloud, and here's what it said. He said he has his doctorate in psychology, he has his master's in business and a master's in divinity, just because I guess he was bored or he grew during isolation better than all of us did. But he has incredible insights, coaches incredible Fortune 500 companies, and here's what he had to say: hopelessness arises when we run out of options, or we believe there are no options left. Get this, when we run out of options, it's easy to feel hopeless and helpless. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Come on. In isolation, when your mind begins to wander, when socially you feel lonely and disconnected, emotionally, they take control of the ship, and you think to yourself, I don't have options. I don't have a next step. I don't have anything next. And you begin to feel yourself hopeless and helpless. It's never going to get better. We're never going to find a cure. We're never going to find a solution. We've had this conversation before. Are we really doing this again? You begin to get testy with people around you. Life becomes difficult. Relationships become difficult. Your job becomes burdensome. I get it. It's hard. And when we eliminate our options, we begin to feel hopeless and helpless. When we're alone, this is only expedited, and if we're not careful, it will get worse. It will get worse, I know. What an encouraging message. I'm so glad I came to LifePoint this weekend. It will get worse unless you decide it won't. Unless you decide to be proactive. Unless you call it what it is and decide, I will not be hopeless and helpless because I have options. You want to know what your options are today? You decided to watch online, or you decided to come in person. Decided to go for a walk, decided to stand in the sun. Listen, for some of you, I don't, this isn't going to hit all of you, but I hope it hits at least somebody. Maybe I'll look at the camera so none of you feel like I'm talking to you in here. But my suspicion is this, that there is somebody who's maybe watching right now who feels like hopelessness is what they feel. Maybe you'd categorize it using words like depression or anxiety. And if you're really honest, this isn't a time to joke around, but if you're really honest, maybe you've thought to yourself, is life worth living? Is this really what I signed up for? I just want to encourage you right now. I'm going to look right at the camera and just tell you this, that there are options for your life, that God has something incredible planned for you, and even though you may not see the road ahead of you, even though it may not be clear, I just want to encourage you for a moment. There are options. And where there are options, there's possibilities. And where there's possibilities, there's fruit. And where there's fruit, there's purpose. And let me tell you what, when you know God, something changes in your life. You find a freedom you never knew you expected. You discover a purpose that God has ordained just for you. Come on, you have something that I don't have. You have a purpose on your life. And when you do that, you can change the world. Don't tell me there aren't options. Today's not a day where we walk away hopeless and helpless. We walk away realizing that if we're not careful, it's an opportunity for a burden. But on the flip side, we can also find a blessing. Here's what we can find emotionally. We can find contentment. We can find contentment. I think the word contentment gets a bad rap. We don't really express it the same way we would joy or enthusiasm. Contentment kind of just feels like the lazy option. Like, yeah, I'm contented today. But man, contentment, if we get this, if you find purpose for your life, if you find a peace that transcends your understanding, I'm telling you, contentment can be your best friend. Contentment says, regardless of whether or not I like my options, I'm grateful to have them. Contentment says, listen, regardless if I like everything that's happening in my life, which just, spoiler alert, if you've been alive for more than 7 minutes, you realize you're not ever really gonna like everything you have in your life, but it's not about that. It's not something you possess or take a hold of, but it's something you pursue with your life, is simple contentment. Maybe today is the day that you begin to find some contentment and some peace as it's sustained longer than a temporary solution, but a long-term option that Jesus puts on the table. He says this in Luke 6, verses 12 and 13. One of these days, Jesus went out to the mountainside to pray, and he spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him. So you're telling me Jesus spent the entire night praying? Like, oh, okay. I'm going to admit it. Now, this is very clear to all of you that I am not on the same level as Jesus, but man, I don't think there's a way I could spend a whole night praying. Praying is honestly, if I'm being really honest, is better than melatonin sometimes. I mean, that thing will put you to sleep. Anyone tried to pray at night? Like, God, this is going to be a great moment and you're just out. Like, you don't remember what happened. You're like, oh, God must have heard the rest of it in my dreams. And that would have been, realizing he felt my heart behind it. It's incredible. But what Jesus did, get this. He decided to carve out an entire night to find peace by himself. Because I believe it contented his soul. Because he knew it's something that had to be pursued with long-term effort. But it's not a temporary solution. So if you say today, I want contentment, I want to snap my fingers, and I just want it, and I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to live the rest of my life, and I'm just going to be contented, I wish that's how it worked. But I think it requires us every day to wake up and realize that socially, mentally, and emotionally, we have to embrace the blessing that can come from isolation. We have to embrace the blessing that can come from a relationship with Jesus. I wish I had a different option. That's the reason that I continue to speak, is because I haven't found a different solution that brings contentment like it does with Jesus. That doesn't mean everything's perfect in your life. It just means that I am so okay with what's happening. There's a peace that transcends understanding. So, as we end this time together, I'm going to ask you to pray in just a moment. So, if you're here, would you do me a favor? Would you set stuff down next to you? I'm guessing you have an open seat, so set it down next to you. Maybe set it on the floor. If you're watching online, could you do me? I know this is going to seem strange, but could you just set stuff down around you? You don't need your phone. You don't need distractions. Quit cooking that omelet. Just give yourself a second. Here's what I'm going to ask. Would you join me in just a quick prayer? There's nothing extra spiritual in the Bible. It doesn't say that when we bow our head and close our eyes that something spiritual happens. But what I do think it does is it reminds us that we can rid ourselves of distractions, find a tiny moment of, you guessed it, isolation. If you have kids in the kids ministry, they are taken care of, they're safe, they're fine. You don't have to worry about them. But right now, you can find your own moment. And maybe today is a moment you needed to meet one-on-one with Jesus just for a second. So would you do that? Would you bow your head and close your eyes? Just to find a little bit of privacy in a public place like this. And maybe if you're watching online, just to calm yourself down a little bit. Just turn the gears down a little bit. And I'm going to challenge you with this before I pray. You figure out right now. You decide. What's the end of this going to look like? I don't know where the end of the road is. I don't know where the end of the tunnel with this isolation and distancing and all the strange stuff and this kind of break from what we normally know. I don't know where the end is. But if you decide now, you can decide what it looks like for you. Is this going to be a season where you grow? Is this going to be a season where you get through what you've been through? And you allow God to open up something new for your future? Is this going to be a season where everything changed? Or you continue to be hopeless? Will you set that aside? Will you continue to be lonely, or will you realize that God provides a relationship better than anyone you could have ever asked for or imagined? That at any moment, at any opportunity, because of what Jesus did on a cross, and better than that, because he rose again 3 days later, you have access to God. God who created the world, created you, created me. Man, that's awesome. God, I thank you that today we can see this season as a blessing and not a burden. Would you help us in the moments where this does feel out of control? In the moments where we feel like we don't have a grasp on it anymore, where worry begins to take control of our lives, begins to obsess over every thought that we have. Would you just slow us down for a moment and realize that you are for us, not against us? God, that you have our best interests in mind. God, that you have made your opinion about us abundantly clear by dying on a cross. God, that you love us. Call us sons and daughters. So today we walk away hopeful. We walk away with options. We walk away encouraged. We walk away with the strength, God, to grow in a way that we never knew was possible. Because we know that when we know you, we can find a freedom we never knew was possible. God, that we can discover a purpose that lies solely in your hands, and we can change the world, whether that be our world, whether that be our families, whether this be our community or our city, or just simply change the lives of a friend. God, you've given us the strength to do it. We're thankful today that you provide a blessing in a season that feels like a burden. So I pray a blessing over every person that's watching online today that took some time to really invest in this. I pray for every person in this room who decided to drive to church to be a part of this incredible community. I pray a blessing over them, that would you send them into this week and into the rest of this season with a strength, man, that sets them apart from everybody else they know. God, we love you and we're thankful for you. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Come on, LifePoint, you guys look good today. You guys look great. Come on. Oh, stop it. You're a blessing. You just want me to stop talking. I get it. Hey, if you need prayer today or anything, or just want to grab another cup of coffee, you can do that on the way out. Get prayer right over here. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.